Welcome to the Love Government. I'm Dennis Leary. We are doing a series of talks on sex lover, and this is now the 7th in this series. In the previous one I was talking about the 5 points of the Love Government Handbook, and I want to go back to one I skipped over pretty quick, and that is the ring finger. And I happen to have the clitoris ring on my finger here, which in the United States anyway is the marriage finger. In other countries it could be this finger or any other finger or no finger, but here in the States it's the marriage finger, and rings are exchanged in a marriage ceremony. I wanted to say that I'm not in favor of coupling relationships per se, but coupling can go on, but if it undermines the community, it's not so good. Now, I've been married for 18 years. Now I'm divorced for, I guess 7 years now. Divorced, and I'm a parent. And prior to my marriage, I've had several short-term relationships, some one-night stands, and things like that. But I'm very different now. I'm at 75 years old now in 2015. So I look back on my life and I can see all my stages of growth and development. So the things that I am saying now that I'm against were the very things that I did all throughout my life. But that's life. We all go through our stages and our experiences, and they're all good. It's all good. I'm giving you my perspective now at 75, here in March of 2015. But that's very different from a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, from where I was. So I can't be too critical of other people. I shouldn't be, because I am them. I've done the same thing that I see around me now, but just that I'm saying now, not that I want to be better than anybody, I don't want to be a leader of any kind or an authority of any kind. I'm just saying my experience is thus and thus. Looking back on 75 years, this is what I see now. I didn't see it, before. So I can understand that people don't take to it because they don't see it. But we're planting seeds here. In these videos, we give out seeds, and then they may sprout or not, or somebody might just think about it or hear about it. Anyway, it gets out into the environment. These ideas are seeds. And it gets out into the environment. Regardless of people, it could get into the unconscious. People go, oh, what is it? I just heard that term. Oh, it's interesting. Love government. I wonder what that means. Okay, then that's all they know at that time. Let's get back to the love culture. And the ring finger is the marriage finger. And that is, if I were to get married again, I would marry the whole community. If there were such a thing. I wouldn't couple up anymore, I don't think. I mean, it could start that way with a couple, but if that's where it ends, I don't think it's going to work. It has to go to 3 and 4 or more. Or I would say, if I'm going to marry somebody, I would marry the lover, which is a term for all of the community. You marry a community. The whole world is your sexual partner. Not just genital sex, but general sex. As I've said, there's a general aspect to this thing where we are making love all of the time. Every thought, word, and action is an act of love, and therefore it's an act of sex. It's a giving. I don't like the term have sex because it's contradictory. We already have a sex, we're a man or a woman. So why would we say I want to have sex? Doesn't make sense. I already have a sex. But I can give sex. I can give of my sex as a real man and as a real woman, if I am one. And in a sense, I am a woman inside. It's called anima as opposed to animus. Or the woman would have an animus inside of her, and she has an anima or a soul. This is according to psychological theory. Therefore, marriage is something very beautiful if it has a communal aspect to it. In the sexual community, speaking of seeds, like this process we're doing here, we're seeding, we're always seeding with our ideas, our thoughts, our feelings, our relationships, our experiences. It's some kind of a seed being planted all the time. In the love culture where sex was going on, there was a seeding process also. And that refers to the semen of a man and the semen of a woman, although we don't usually distinguish. We don't say a woman has semen because the man does, but semen really just means seed. It comes from the word seed. And a woman really has the seeds. That's called ova, from her ovaries. These are big seeds. These are the seed. The sperm is not a seed. The sperm is an impregnator, but it's not, well, you could say a seed, but the woman is the one that really has the seeds. So a woman's sexual fluids are also seeding, but they're like the clitoris. They were designed for pleasure, not any particular utilitarian function. The clitoris here is designed for pleasure rather than utility, rather than making a baby or reproduction. And the same with the woman's waters. They don't seem to have any purpose as far as reproduction goes, but they have a purpose as far as pleasure goes, like the clitoris. The clitoris is for pleasure, but the woman's ejaculatory waters are also for pleasure. It's a sacrament. It's a holy thing, if it's viewed that way. And it would have been sacramentalized. It would have been used in a very reverent way as something that's holy. And these are really healthy things. Scientists are beginning to analyze them. The sperm, as I said, has 50 different elements in it, and all of them, I think, are health-enhancing. All of them. And probably the same is true for a woman's waters. But they're more pure, they're clear, they're more like water, where the man's is more like oil. They're kind of a bit oily. And as far as taste goes, the woman's is pretty much tasteless, like water, but the man's has all kinds of strange tastes to it. It's bitter, it's sour, it's pungent, it's filled with all kinds of chemicals, like 50 different kinds of chemicals. They're all natural chemicals and also health beneficial. But it's not palatable for most people. Semen is, male ejaculate is not very palatable. But it's done. You know, it's done, but it's a different story. But the woman's is a little different. So these are seeds, and these were sacred seeds on the part of the man and the woman, and so they were, in the act of sex, if you had group sex, you had a lot of sexual fluids spilling onto the bodies of your own body and in the bodies of your partners, or into the ground. I remember we're in the tropics, and so they had broad-leafed plants on the ground. And so you could just, spill water and stuff on the ground, and then you take the leaves out to the forest. So the fluids, the sexual fluids, were not a problem like they are for us, nor the menstrual fluids. And the menstrual and the sexual fluids, a woman could ejaculate when she was menstruating. As far as I know, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, except it's aesthetically maybe not pleasing to us. But in love culture, they were, like I said over and over, they were not shame-based. And then what did they do with the fluids? Well, they rubbed them into their own bodies because they were health enhancers. All kinds of interesting things. Endorphins, they make you feel better. I read the list anyway somewhere on the internet. 10 different things that's really good about semen. Or they're talking about semen, but then We don't know too much about the women's waters, but I suspect the same thing. They're health enhancers. So they were rubbed onto the body like a lotion. And in some cases, with oral sex, they were tasted and swallowed. This is oral sex. Or the body was in a way, it was like food, eaten. These are very graphic things, and I hope I'm being somewhat careful with them and reverential. But we want to get over our shame-based culture. We need to do that if we're going to survive, and our guilt and our taboos. And we have to be careful, though, because we're living in an anti-love, prudent, violent culture. And people out there are pretty mixed up, and they're just looking for some place to displace their violence. They're looking for a victim they can dump on, and that's why you have to be really careful in sexual matters. You can get away with a lot of violence. You see that on the internet. You can talk about violence all you want, and wars, and killing, and show pictures of murdered people and blood all over the place. You can get away with it. But you can't get away with much in the way of sexuality. It's pretty well controlled. Now, even the porn sites are pretty well controlled. That is about making money, is about objectifying people, making women objects. There's all kinds of devious, destructive things related to porn. It's the objectification of people. It isn't this sacred there's no sacred context to it. There's a money context to it, and a violence. There's a deep underlying violence to these things, especially against women. They make women into women. Men. They look like women, but they're men on the inside. Especially the political leaders, the token women all around are really men on the inside. We're talking about in the seeding, we seed with ideas, but in the love culture they actually shared the sexual fluids in a natural way, and they didn't have to worry about the things we worry about. Getting blood, menstrual blood, oh gee, it's going to stain something, or staining the sheets, staining the clothing, or worse, embarrassment. Somebody discovers what you're doing. All of this is nonsense, but it's programmed nonsense. It's programmed into us to instill fear. It's a violent program, instills fear in us. Fear of sexuality. And you can get sick and die from having sex if you get a disease, sexual disease, STD, sexually transmitted disease. Some of these diseases, according to some investigators, were actually programmed by the elites, or we call them evil elites. Some of these sexual diseases and so on are actually set up through health organizations and vaccinations and stuff. You've got to be really careful. The government is lying almost 100% of the time on these things. And they're killers in sheep's clothing. The long and short of it is, when you're dealing with sex, you're dealing with the root of the problems. You're dealing with the root of patriarchy, evilarchy, the root of all of the problems. And so this is a festering sore deep down in the psyche, and if you pierce it, it may explode. It's like a time bomb that's ready to go off, and you happen to walk by and say the wrong thing at the wrong time, be in the wrong place, look the wrong way, and bingo, you set off a time bomb, and you're subject suddenly to violence. And whoa, what did I do? Best thing to do is protect yourself with this type of energy. We do like this, and we're going to close now with this particular sexual sign, which is the sign of the vulva. It's an oval. It rests on the woman's crest, and it goes like this: in the name of the lover, the mother, going across her breasts and her belly, and the father. Love, love, and more love. Thank you.